Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about why AMC should be higher, the possible gamma squeeze day, the sudden surge at any moment, and many more in this video. Firstly, we're taking a look at this. Why should AMC's price be way higher? Now, one of the biggest things that we are looking at currently is just how well naturally AMC is doing along with the industry. We're talking short interest, short squeeze aside, just looking at how well AMC is performing, we are in a very good position. When you take a look at the current domestic box office and how it's growing, when it's showing that it's thriving and not just recovering, and the fact that AMC is the largest within the industry, we are at the forefront of benefiting from everything right now. Not to mention, AMC is doing everything they can to actually gain even more market share than they currently have. We talked about how their investments into premium large screens is something that has allowed more customers, more attendance towards AMC as opposed to others. And bear in mind, this is something that they have been doing not just now, but they have been doing it for a while now. So we've really got a head start within this race. So this is really going to be a snowball effect of growing and growing as more and more people go watch movies, but more importantly, they go to AMC's to watch movies. And this is why we said we are currently benefiting the most from this booming box office. And as we see more and more movies being released, as we see others like partnerships with Netflix, like we talked about the collaborations, like we talked about with the World Cup showings, these are all things that are going to push AMC towards another level. And when we see the increase in cash, or we see the increase in fundamentals, you can then obviously expect even more things, like some of the things we've mentioned in the past. Dividends, share buybacks, the paying off the debt, all of these things will become possible as we see AMC do well. When you take a look at the box office, just like what we talked about now and how well we are growing, you can already see the domestic yearly box office, the year-to-date comparison. We're looking at 4 billion already, and it's up in comparison to the past years. And another important thing is we still have plenty of movies that are coming out this month, but also going into the future. The majority of the box office comes in Q3 and Q4. The very fact we are seeing how well we are already doing now, and you compare that with what's about to happen in Q3 and Q4, you start to realize why every institution is trying to pivot into AMC right now because of all the pros we've just mentioned. And so just as we've said, let's remove the squeeze factor out of it since short interest is dropping. What is the reason why the number one company in a thriving industry shouldn't be around the same price as its competitors who don't have the same amount of theaters or audience? And this is the biggest thing, and it's why we've said that people are pivoting into AMC. Now, the question has already been answered in terms of why isn't AMC at the same price. That's because of the corruption, the manipulation, and suppression that's ongoing. But when we talk about why AMC should not only be the same price, but even higher, it's because we talked about we have more theaters, we are the biggest within the industry, and we're seeing record attendance month by month and potentially quarter by quarter. And with all of this, as we see the efficiency go up, as we see the revenue per patron go up, you're really going to see that gap being built up. And so many people may not realize this right now, but as we go into the future and people talk about attendance, people talk about the revenue per patrons, these are going to be the key things because it's going to show just how much more AMC will not only make, but obviously profit from as well. And for people who have seen this is why we understand this is deep value and that we are still at an extremely undervaluation. Even if AMC goes up by 500%, I still do believe that we are undervalued because of what the potential there is. Now, the past 5 consecutive AMC Friday closing prices has been this: 128, 151, 173, 179, and 234. So these are for the past 5 weeks. And you can see here how the price is building up. This is what we said with people are realizing what there is with AMC. People are realizing the potential. People are realizing the future potentials. People are realizing just how undervalued we are currently. Even in the short term or the long term, there is so much for AMC. And that's why we're seeing this constant constant accumulation in AMC, why we're constantly seeing people buying into AMC, and it's right now reflecting in the closing price. Not to mention, we're closing above max paying, we're allowing more and more pressure to be set on towards the market makers, towards the short sellers. So these are all very positive things for AMC. And another big thing, and it's why we've said that Adam Aaron is working for the interest of AMC, because he is one of the biggest benefactors from this, because you can see AMC is now up 75% since Adam Aaron purchased 250,000 shares at 137 on May 19th. Remember, we talked about this. It was a very, very positive sign that Adam Aaron bought into AMC, and he of course mentioned it. And we talked about in terms of it is in every aspect of Adam Aaron's interest to push AMC price as much as possible. And we are already seeing the fact that if he's willing to not only buy more AMC on top of what he has, he obviously realizes what he has to do. And it's why we see this 75% increase, is because he's willing to put in the work. He is wanting to put the best potential out there for AMC. And this is why we talked about previously why this was a very, very positive sign. When you take a look at the recap, we saw last week where AMC opened at 180 at the start of the week and it closed at 234. We saw the volume that came in, we saw the amount of pressure that was in, we know some key areas to look out for. Now, of course, currently we still have the 250 area, that's where we're trying to crack today. The high was 246, we are currently at 231, but this is only the start of the week. And remember how every Friday we have closed higher, it's only gonna continue at this momentum. And the more deeper in the money these call options are getting, so we're talking about the 150, we're talking about the $2 calls, and we could even potentially be talking about the 250 calls, these are going to apply more and more pressure, and that's exactly what we want to watch out for. Now, some people may be talking about the sudden drop in the box office. Bear in mind that currently there have been many other events going on. We had the NBA finals, and now ongoing we have the FIFA World Cup, and all of these things are just right now taking some attention. But remember, AMC is still streaming the World Cup, as we talked about in the past before, and so this is still something that shouldn't be worrying. The fact that AMC is able to still operate and take advantages of other events, that's the key point that you should be taking a look at, because then we're not just bounded by the box office, we're not just bounded by if one single movie do well, but we're looking at multiple different things. And that's exactly why we've said that AMC has put themselves ahead of all of the other competitions within the industry. Also, another big thing is that Pentwater sold all their puts the day they acquired 9.9% of AMC. And we talked about how this is a showcase of what they want to do. We talked about how there is that potential of wanting to push, along with Discovery, the squeeze of AMC. And we talked about the tactics that they could potentially be using. And it's a big thing that we are seeing more and more institutions closing their short exposure on AMC, is because they've realized what is about to happen, is because they've realized how stupid of a bet it is to make by shorting against AMC. And that's why we're seeing the fact that they are accumulating more and more AMC and closing the short positions of AMC. Also, as we talk about the gamma squeeze, you can see right now AMC shares is trading around the 240, just 0.10 below the next option level of 250. Remember that currently when we do see AMC close above these certain prices, it has had an effect on the increase on the momentum of AMC. So as we're seeing AMC going towards that 250, as we see that potentially can break forward, we're looking at multiple other things happening. If you want to see how volatile the calls have been, we saw that the $2 calls for July are now trading at 0.50, where it's up 92%. And I definitely do think that because we're seeing this massive volatility and the fact that it's going so well, we're going to be seeing more and more people piling in. Now, going into options is obviously a different effect to buying into shares, but it will still have an effect. It will still push that pressure because of what we said in the past before, but also knowing the fact that even when we buy shares, it's rooted in the dark pool. But if we buy shares and exercise, or if we buy options and exercise them, it will have a different effect. This isn't to encourage you guys to buy options, but it's saying how the increase in the options volume will still have a positive impact on AMC. We can see that AMC currently has 154,000 calls in the money expiring this this week. At 250, 233,000 shares calls are in the money, and at $3, 281,000 shares calls in the money. And it's how we know that the short sellers don't want to see these price levels. And it's also how we said that when we do see AMC at these levels, you can imagine the effect that it can have. You can imagine the pressure, the volume that it can easily spark for AMC. Now, according to Grok, what we're seeing right now is that June 18th might trigger a modest AMC gamma squeeze. And this is actually a very big thing because it's acknowledging what's ongoing in the market right now. It's acknowledging the volume, the volatility, the money that's piling in to not only AMC shares, but AMC calls as well. And just like we've seen in the past before, AMC easily has this effect. And this is why we've said that right now, with this current volatility, with everything that's ongoing right now, you could see the spark of a gamma squeeze. Now, bear in mind that it is quoting modest, and so that's not something we should be expecting to push AMC into the hundreds. But even with a small gamma squeeze, we talked about how momentum is very important, because a small squeeze, even if it's a gamma squeeze that brings AMC from $2.50 or from $3 towards $6, that is still then going to have a major effect, because it's going to then push a lot of short sellers into the red. It's going to push even more calls in the money. It's then going to encourage more people to buy shares, more people to buy calls, and then it's going to have that effect again, but even bigger. So you can imagine how important this is. And just like we talked about, when you take a look at the options chain, you can see what's ongoing right now. You can see the amount of calls that are in the money and still out the money, and the potential that it has. And going into the future as well, we're going to be seeing more and more calls piling in, more and more volume. And it's how we know that currently options is allowing AMC to have the pressure that we've always wanted. So bear in mind that yes, we may be seeing this red. AMC is down 150 for the day, but we have to remember that AMC right now has nothing but bullish news. Shorts want to short. We have to remember that when the price of AMC going down, it isn't because people are suddenly selling, but it's because of the manipulation and suppression that's ongoing. And easily, the sudden up surges in both AMC revenue and share value are difficult to accurately predict. And just bear in mind that currently we have AMC at 230. Just like we talked about how a gamma squeeze can happen, a short squeeze can easily happen. A massive volatility moment would be able to happen. And that's why we've said that don't just be kind of confused by what's ongoing currently. Now, I'm sure many apes know that already, but this is just a thing to know. And you can also see here what we talked about with algos, what we talked about with the sudden surge was that if you go back in 2021 and you look at the run to $70, you can see how a lot of data actually fit and it can explain what's ongoing. And we talked about how this ultimately goes down to the fact that it was algorithmic trading. And when we talk about algorithms, we know that they can easily kind of be overpowered, that they can easily be overstressed. And what we are seeing right now is that AMC has the ability to do that. And the moment we see a malfunction of the algorithms, because suddenly so much pressure is piling in, so much volume is piling in, then you can see how it is able to have a sudden surge for AMC. And also currently right now, if you want to take a look at the technicals, AMC is still in a very big position. We still have the technicals. Again, technicals isn't as important, but we talked about how it shows a sentiment, but also talking about how AMC right now is looking like it's going to move to $5. It could trigger an explosion in the derivatives market. And we could easily have a thing going on between AMC going up, which allows GME to go up, which then allows the whole market to kind of boom and then push both stocks up into the moon. And that's what we're seeing right now. And this is something that obviously everyone's waiting for, but is a potential that's ongoing. And also what we are seeing right now, it's the gaps, the technicals. Again, I'll quickly leave this on the screen if you want to take it. But it just shows how both short-term and long-term is very bullish for AMC. Now, with that said, We still have to look out for the manipulation. We still have to look out for the suppression. That's something that's always ongoing, just like with what we talked about earlier. But you will know what's actually happening with AMC. You know what the truth is for AMC. So just make sure you watch out for those things. And we talked about how there are 9.6 million shares available of AMC to short. But we have to understand is that currently they are scared to short because of how well AMC is doing. Also, another thing to look at is just what we talked about with how Robinhood is trapped with the GME shorts along with the AMC shorts. And it's seemingly looking like they're having problems because what we saw was how the Robinhood systems were down, preventing retail investors from selling their shares. And this is just a similar story to what we've seen in the past, but it explains a lot, especially when you understand what's ongoing with AMC right now and how well it's doing. And what we are also seeing is how the SEC is trying to prevent exchanges and market makers from executing a stock price at a level that is worse than the available prices. And essentially, they will grant greater autonomy to institutions and more opportunities for market makers to essentially price fix securities. So you're seeing how all of these rules that are being implemented to benefit the institutions are suddenly coming out the moment we see AMC go up. You start to see the coincidence there. As always, none of this is financial advice, and I'll catch you guys next time.